Okay, so I think it has been a while since we did one of these, rating every single device in Fortnite Creative. And I think since we're very close to Creative 2.0, I thought we should give every single device a rating. Probably more than 140 devices right now. We are starting from the bottom of the list to the top. So let's start with the bottom row, which I call why even in the game. The hover platform, I don't think we have to talk about this much. I'm not sure why this is even a device in first place. The scoreboard, I've never seen anybody use this device ever. The timer device on a trap. So this device, sadly, was one of the best devices back in the days. However, now with the actual timer in the game, which is a prop, this device became absolutely useless and will probably get deleted actually at some point. I think I actually just forget one looking at this one. The ball. The physics on this ball are absolutely terrible, and I think it will be deleted soon with maybe the toys coming out at some point. But yeah, I think this device, if it would actually work, would be a lot higher, but it doesn't work. It never works. The physics are off every time, so sadly. Moving on to the F tier, which is basically the same as why even in the game, but sometimes it is a bit useless. Obviously, the fishing rod spawner, sometimes pretty cool to have it. These railings, I rarely ever see them used today, but they kind of fell off a little bit. So L plus ratio for these. Cardboard box, pretty cool at the beginning, but however, it's also rarely see this one. Also eats a lot of memory. The ice is now absolutely useless. Poison trap is just a weaker and more annoying normal trap, so I don't see it much used in death runs. This is cool for the one time you use it, and that's it basically. After that, nobody ever uses it again. Moving on to the D tier, and I think this tier is like you can have some use for these devices. However, they either lack a lot of features that they should have, or they're just like borderline broken. So Quad Crasher is it's a pretty cool car, but there's a lot of other cars and a lot of them can do cooler things or look better. So I think overall it's just like a D tier car. The boat, I don't see much people use it actually because I don't see too many water maps. The cannon itself obviously would be a little bit higher if we wouldn't have got the amazing like new cannon. So it basically lands in D tier now. The Firefly spawner it's a cool new device. However, it's like very rare in use cases, and I think I've ever only seen it used by people as aesthetics, and it's not the point of a device, so kind of D tier. The dance mannequin, I don't know, it's also one of these cases. You can have it in the back, especially if you have a party map, but it's very rare use cases, and it basically is not that amazing of a device overall. The supported creator device. I think this device would be just better off if it would not exist at all. However, you cannot change it now. I think it helps a lot of people as well, and that's probably the only reason why it's even in D tier. Half the people in creative cannot even use this device because you obviously need to support a creative for it. So yeah, it's not higher than a D by any means. The Lamatron. The Lamatron is probably the most disappointing thing that we got in creative. It is loud, obnoxious, and if I see one more person putting it in a hub, in the creative hub and blasting out my ears when I join the game, I'm gonna lose it. Fuel pump was very cool for a few days until you realize that there's basically now the fire device, and like you can basically have a lot of other stuff with the fire. The jump pad, I don't know, it's just a normal trap, nothing special, nothing crazy. It is useful in some cases. The surfboard, same thing with the boat. I don't really see much water maps, and I don't see the surfboard being used as much. The chest spawner are only good for finding unreleased items. I don't think I have to say much about that. The prop manager, I think it's called. It's obviously only for if you actually use the prop manager, and I don't see a lot of people other than obviously in prop hunt maps using this, so it's pretty rare use case, and also the settings in there are not that great at all. The trap device, one of the coolest devices before we got the prop manipulator, but now basically fell off quite a bit as well, and just basically has become a very rare use case when you actually want to have these animations of the wall blinking. It can be used, but it's overall really fell off. The UFO would be probably an S tier device if it would, first of all, not be broken all the time. Second of all, would not have decreased the spawner size. And yeah, basically, I don't want to give this device higher than D. I would love to give it because it has so many cool things that we don't really have in creative with like moving props randomly. Okay, so coming to C tier, we still have now devices which are still like a little bit like very unique in itself, and they don't really have much depth to them. But if they do something, they do it right. Okay, so starting off with the 3 old vehicles. The only reason they're in here because they feel a little bit clunky to use. I don't know what it is about them. It just feels a little bit clunky. So the new cannon obviously is now the replacement for the old one. It has a lot more features. It's a little bit cooler and overall, but however, it's still very niche and very one-sided. The objective device gallery. I don't have seen people use this as much. Back in the days, it was used for basically anything and everything. However, there's still like a lot of things which are missing in this gallery to make it like a better tier. Especially there needs to be more models for it, and there's just a few models. The campfire has obviously been updated quite a bit, and before that it would probably been like very useless. Now it's a pretty niche thing, and if you want something where you heal from a campfire, it's really good. So these are probably the most used traps in like death runs, so they're used very often. I mean, they're very limited, obviously they're very old, but still a lot of people use them every time in death runs, and I think they're part of every good essential death run. The supply drop spawner, it's a very unique device and a very rare case, but it's very cool and kind of like one of the newer devices. Really cool impact or feeling, or making games feel a little bit more like BR if you're really looking for that style. The speaker and the radio, I just wish I would do them higher because sound is such an important part of making a game. However, these only have very limited options when it comes down to the things that are in game. I don't know why these two devices have such a Halloween fetish to them. They're just like spammed all over with Halloween stuff, but not anything else. Limited in the sounds that you can use, sadly. I don't even remember how this device is called, and I only see it basically in big creators maps where they have like events. However, it's a pretty cool device that you can actually have the real time kind of adjust to it. The hologram is just a cool device which you can put in the background. It has a clock on it. It has basically a few like very cool details to it. However, I don't think it's more than a C device. The color changing tile has obviously been updated. While the update wasn't that crazy, it just got another style. It's also a very rare use case, and I don't think you can do much with it. But other than that, I think it's just a nice C device. I think this one is called the damage power up, right? Same thing here again. All of these power-ups and consumables are basically very rare use cases. You could use them if you really need them and they do their job perfectly. However, they're not really stand out in any means, and they're not the must-have in every map. The round device. So I don't see myself using this device as much, but this might be just my personal thing. Because I don't really do a lot with the round games, so maybe someone that creates only round-based stuff, this will be extremely high. But I don't see myself using this device as much, so I don't think it's higher than C for me at least. Down button and out device, obviously it's a very cool use case. Again, it's a very unique use case. If you don't really want to have the down button and out mechanic, it's not really useful in any means. It's a C tier. The timed objective device, one of the best devices back in the days, fell a little bit off because now we have the timer, which basically does everything better than all of this device and this device together. However, it's still very use case if you want to have like a time bomb. I think this one is still better in this case. And it has some options which are really helpful, like in search and destroy maps. Okay, so moving into the B tier, now it's getting really spicy. So we obviously have all of the newer vehicles, so the new helicopter and all of the cars. The boiler is obviously a very unique and specific thing, and I just like it overall. It's just like an amazing car or device vehicle. The new beta bus, it's obviously a new bus and it has guns on top, so the tank is obviously kind of amazing, just like the Brute, if the Brute will still be in the game. And the hoverboard is so unique because it can ride on these visuals and stuff like that. You can jump with it. It's just a very unique device, and for the age of this device, it is absolutely B tier. The reference device back in the days was also probably an S tier device because of the only time we could have actually player skins in the game. It fell a little bit off from S tier, I would say, but it's still very useful for mechanics. So I think a B tier is fair. The racing manager and the racing checkpoint are also very, very useful for races and needed for races. Other than races, they're not really useful, but they're still like very good in that sense. The A-locator device / XP device. So yet again, another device which I wish wouldn't technically not be in the game. However, it's really helping a lot of creators, so I think it's a lot better than just the supported creator device. To get more plays and get people actually playing creative. However, again, you can only use it if you have a code, and it takes forever to relocate, and if you basically don't have enough players, you never get XP. So the collectibles gallery is just like amazing if you ever want to have objectives. I think the collectibles gallery is just a better objective gallery. It has everything that the objective gallery has, basically. Overall, a very good gallery to create a very unique game mode. The matchmaking device. Now that I think of it, this is actually more of an A tier device. Maybe even S tier, yeah. I was just thinking of it as matchmaking portals, but it's obviously a lot more than just matchmaking portals. Fire volume is like, again, a very unique use case. You don't really need fire as much as anything else, but if you have it, it's really cool. It's a really cool animation and like the burning of everything. Score manager has fallen off a little bit as well, since we now have like so many devices which can display numbers and display things. However, I still see it in a lot of maps being used, and especially for managing scores, it's a pretty good device overall. Item remover, I don't see myself using this device as much, but I can see other people use it a ton. So for me, it's a B tier, but for other people, it's probably a bit higher. Same thing with the Illumination Manager. I don't use this device as much, but depending on the game modes you're creating, this can be very useful, especially when dropping weapons when someone getting killed. The button obviously fell off. It would be a must-have in like basically any map that ever needed buttons or triggering anything. However, since the Switch device is in the game, this Switch device can basically do anything that the button can. Sometimes I find it easier to use the button than the Switch for just simple things. The movement modulator is just amazing, and I love it to use, especially for like experiments. But I think a lot of people would put it a little bit lower, but in my case, I just love to use it. Same thing with the pinball bumpers. They're just funny to use. Like the amounts that you can set in there are just amazing, and it's just fun to use overall. The old VFX one now has obviously been throttled down a little bit since we have the VFX creator, which you can create really custom stuff. This one obviously has pre-made things. Still easier to use and has a lot of use cases still, like the rain and all of that stuff. It's just easier to use overall. However, I think it's still a very niche use case overall. The mannequin device is obviously amazing for creating NPCs. However, it takes a lot of memory. It's the only device which can really have like a ton of custom skins, other than obviously the henchmen. However, it is still a B tier because of the high memory cost, and like it can obviously not move. Yeah, I said about the zombies multiple times. I hate the looks of the zombies. I wish we would have more zombie styles. It is a good device. If you want to have zombies in your maps, then it's cool. But it's not higher than B for me unless they get new skins. The Storm is a very rare use case. I don't see a lot of people using the Storm anymore, other than obviously BR maps. But overall, I think this is the only device that can create an actual Storm. So a B tier is fair. The map indicator is the one thing that can do one thing very good, but you know, it is useful in a lot of maps, but however, it's very limited. The capture, I think this device has its up and down. Also, I think it's pretty hard to use overall. I think the settings in this device are a little bit confusing. However, it can be used in a lot of cases, and it is probably being used in a lot of cases. I think you can create most of the mechanics that you can create with the capture area, aside from maybe actually capturing an area with other devices as well. So I think other than having this cool capture area effect, the end game device is obviously useful if you want to end the game at some point with a trigger. However, if you really just create games which end on like kill stuff and stuff like that, you don't really need this device at all. This device is useful, but it's also a very rare use case. The team settings and inventory device. Yes, it's still a trap, so that's the only reason why it's in B. If it would not be a trap, it would probably be an S, but it's so annoying to set up. It takes forever to set up, and you cannot copy and paste it. It's a cool device, and it can do really a lot of stuff, especially when it comes down to team settings. However, it's annoying to use, and that's the reason why it's in B. The health power-up, same thing again here. You can probably use it in a lot of cases, but I just don't use it as much. The explosive device fell off a little bit because of the prop manipulator. The skydiving device, obviously very cool for creating underwater maps, but overall I think it's like just the skydiving. It's a very cool thing. The sentry, same thing, fell off a little bit from being like one of the only NPC devices to now being just a stationary shooting thing. It's pretty cool. You can do a lot of stuff with it still. However, it's nothing like the henchman, and the henchman can basically do anything that the sentry can do. But better. Moving on to A tier, these are like almost the top of the top devices. Starting with the vents, and I think the vent overall is just an amazing device. You can have so many use cases. It's a fun use device. You can use it as just like randomly playing around with it, and it's also very useful in maps. The randomizer is almost a must-have in every map where you want to have anything that is randomized. Obviously makes sense. Sometimes it's a little bit buggy, and it has a few bugs which I don't like about this device. Perception trigger is one of the only devices that can detect people, look at them, and actually send signals. It is a pretty cool device. The attribute trigger is probably the most important thing if you're creating a gun game or some kind of if-else kind of statements in your game. So the vending machine is an easy A device. You can display guns, you can buy guns. It's a really cool overall device. The water device, I don't think I have to say much here. It's amazing. You can put water in your maps. Okay, so the sequencer would be S tier if it wouldn't be a trap. It's annoying to use, but it's just like very useful. The skydive device, I don't see myself using this too often, but if you really need the different background, the different sky, different lighting, it's just amazing, and it's just overall an A tier device. So the lock device is basically the one device which can only do one thing, but it does it so good that you basically need it in every map. And closing doors is kind of like a very important thing in most maps, so definitely an A tier. The checkpoint, I find myself using the checkpoint is an A tier because I find myself using the checkpoint is an A tier because I find myself using the teleports more often than I like to use the checkpoint. I think it's just more convenient for me. I find myself using the new pop-up device more. However, it still has obviously its use cases, and a lot of people use this device. However, I overall think this device is a solid A tier. Starting out with the S tier, the matchmaking device. You can create matchmaking portals, but you can also create really custom images and put them into your maps. The phone booth, which can obviously change skins, self-explanatory. Timer also very useful for any kind of things. It's just like an overall good device. Pop-up dialogue device, just amazing. I love it. It's just cool to see something like this. And I see it in basically any single map that I've ever played now. The counter device just solved so many problems that we had with the mutator zone, where we basically had to really fiddle around with a few things. So the conditioner button, without a doubt, is one of the best devices that you can have if you create some quests in your maps. It is just amazing. You can have like custom guns. You can create all kinds of crafting mechanics. It's just an amazing device overall. The white life spawner enhancement spawners are just something that we waited so long for in creative, and they're finally here. We can have animals in the map. We can have henchmen in the map. Custom NPCs. It's really cool to have these generate in your maps. It's obviously a very specific use case. Not everybody uses always henchmen or wildlife. However, if you want them, they're just perfect. The save device would be a must-have if it could actually also save like your buildings in the map, or like basically anything else other than just the settings. It's an amazing device. However, it's really useless for people that don't have a code. And the remote control device would be also a must-have if it would have more remotes, so you only have these 4 remotes, and if it would have a little bit more options. And the last list is obviously the must-haves, the prop manipulator. I don't think I have to say much here. It is just amazing. We can just make props disappear, change their health. It is just an overall blessing to Fortnite Creative. The switch button, same thing. Since it's been added, basically so many cool new options in this device. Finally have the option to turn things on and off with just one device. The VFX creator device is also a blessing. Just like the things that you can create with this are endless. I think the billboard goes without saying. It's the only device where you can put in custom text. Item spawner and item granner, I don't think I have to say much about these ones. Obviously can spawn items, can display items. Very pork, we need them every time. Player spawn, same thing, goes without saying. Spawning in players, it's helpful in creative creating things, and it's helpful in creative playing things. Trigger device stays on top, best device in the game. I don't have to say anything about it. It's the OG device, it is the trigger, we don't talk about this one. Stays a must-have forever. The prop mover is obviously the only device that can move things. It is not really a must-have in maps, but it's just such an amazing device, and I'm just so happy that we've finally been able to move props in Fortnite Creative. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are missing in this device. Coming through the 3 OG ones, the damage volume, the barrier device, and the mutator zone are basically all devices which you always need in any kind of maps. I think it goes without saying that probably the barrier device is in every single map that ever has been built. The light device really changed a lot of things when it comes down to the feeling of maps and how more realistic they can look. Controller, same thing, goes without saying. You always need to change something on the HUD. The tracker is probably the #1 thing when it comes down to creating quests or basically anything that is being tracked in the game. Now it has so many more options. Before that it was really useful. Now it's like absolutely amazing. The class designer obviously goes without saying. You can create everything in the class designers, everything like putting weapons in there, creating custom speeds, doing whatever. It is like the overall device that is also same thing used in probably every single map. And the teleporter changed creative back then forever. We can finally teleport people from A to B. But overall, I think you can say we have more useful devices than we have more useless devices. And I think overall the creative team did a pretty well job in creating these devices. So with that being said, I'll see you guys back in the next one. Let me know what your tier list is. The link will be down below if you want to create your own. And I'll see you guys back in the next one.